My name is Tom Stevenson. I'm the Vice President of Community and Legal Operations here at Legal.io. And before we kind of get into who we are and our fabulous panelists today, just kind of wanted to tease up a little bit of why we're up here. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. We're good? Is everybody good?
We're good.
All right, perfect. So today we're really going to want to touch on two topics. The first one is talent acquisition. You know, with talent acquisition, one of the things that we're seeing is how can you involve technology? What are the skill sets that the next workforce generation is going to have? And a lot of this is trending towards this skills-based approach, which is so unique for the legal industry. It's something that we're not usually taught, especially coming from AmLaw or big law firms, right? It's just not been a culture that's been embedded within our organizations for more than 20 years. Finally, after that, the second thing that we're going to dive into, which is the most important, is how is AI linked to talent, right? What are the trends that we're seeing? And specifically with Legal.io, we're seeing the increase of flex talent, right? We're seeing the adaptability, more skills-based people. Specifically for this lovely house of, I'm assuming, commercial counsel and legal ops managers and people that are here because CLM or commercial is important to them. It's our number one vertical, and it's something that we're seeing so much flexibility with, just in the market. So without further ado, I'm really excited for today's esteemed panelists. I'd like to introduce you first to Anna Richards, the Director of Legal Operations at John Deere. Going to tell us a little bit about her role there.
Sure, yeah. Anna Richards, Director of Global Legal Operations at John Deere. I've been there since January last year, so about 13 months. I work with a team of 7 ops folks and support a department of about 400 lawyers and support staff.
Great, excellent. And then next, we actually have Andrew Epstein, the General Counsel at DemandBase.
Hey all, I'm Andrew, the General Counsel of DemandBase. We're a B2B SaaS company in the MarTech space. We kind of help you customers understand kind of who's in market for their software or their products at the right time, help you deliver the right message. I've been there for a little over 3 years, and I manage our privacy ops, GRC, governance, risk and compliance, and our commercial legal team as well. And prior to that, I was at a public ad tech company running the US legal team.
Excellent. Our third panelist today is Mickey Newt, Associate General Counsel and Chief of Staff at Pure Storage, or for those online, one half of the Mickey-Nicky duo.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good morning. So glad to be here. Mickey Newt, 7 years at Pure Storage. We're a B2B data storage company, revolutionizing the data storage company with our Flash-based technology. The other half of my duo, Nikki Armstrong, is the Chief Legal Officer, who I'm her Chief of Staff. She recently also embarked on a larger role by becoming our Chief People Officer as well. So overnight, I feel like my role has really expanded, and I love that we're here talking about people today and technology. Falls right within my wheelhouse. Started as a commercial transactions attorney, so I'm a lawyer by trade, but really excited to be growing my career in the ops space.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, Ann Kerwin, Managing Partner at Kerwin Associates.
Hi, I'm Ann, and I'm Managing Director at Kerwin. And Kerwin builds legal teams, legal and compliance teams. We partner closely with our clients to find the ideal hire, do one-off challenging hires, build teams. But I think really our mission is to help people just elevate their careers generally. And I've been in the business for a very long time. I've seen lots of trends and changes. And so this is a new one, and I'm thrilled to kind of be here and speak about it.
Yeah, so as you can see, we kind of have a little arc and a story here, right? So we're having head of legal ops, John Deere, right? A little general counsel flavor. We got the AGC chief of staff, and then we have now a second flex talent, right? So we wanted to give you the entire landscape and perspective of where it is. So I'm going to start backwards, coming this way now. So Ann, you and I, we're in this space, right? We're seeing the increase of flex talent, cost savings. Outside of the how could I utilize, insert your AI model that you like to use for job descriptions or up-leveling your resume, what are the trends that you're seeing in the profession, specifically with candidates?
I would say that from where we sit, we're just really, this is the prologue of the story of AI. Like AI is really humanizing lawyers. I think at this point, it's not replacing legal talent, but it's helping them with systems and being more efficient. I think what we're hearing through our practice and talking to heads of commercial, legal ops, and general counsels is just the pressure they feel to integrate AI. Some are behind the eight ball, some are ahead of the curve, but just general, like, what do I do? Where do I go? There's so much coming at me. And so I think that, as many know, lawyers are not equipped to adopt technology. And many of them are really like, they know that train's coming and they got to get on it or they're going to get killed. So I want to just touch upon hiring, what we're seeing on the hiring side, since that's what we're living and breathing. I think that we're going to see more, and we're seeing it now, of every lawyer really being a technologist. For example, this week I had just 2 interviews with heads of commercial, and in their sharing about their background, their story, and what they've done, they're sharing with me how they implemented AI and they implemented systems. And one went on about LLMs and agents, and it was completely going over my head, but that's okay. And I wouldn't have been having that conversation 8 years ago, 6 years ago. These lawyers are much more metrics in how they present. I think the other thing that's been consistent in the last 8 to 10 years, and you guys see it all the time, whether you're a legal ops lead or you're a general counsel or chief of staff, it's like, we want business-minded individuals. We want strategists. We want people that are operators. And I think as AI is adopted into these legal teams, we're going to need that even more. So the person sitting in the back corner that just was drafting contracts, maybe the contracts manager, the junior attorney is gone, and these lawyers are going to be tasked upon just problem solving at higher levels. And so on the flip side, when people are interviewing for these jobs, whether it's legal ops, whether it's legal, it's presenting in your elevator pitch what you've done with technology. One last thing about hiring is that with the adoption of AI and those that are using it, I think that they're going to be slow to hire, because I think they can look at where a GC would come in, like an Andrew, and say, okay, what are the pain points in this business? Who's my first hire? Now a general counsel or corporate counsel can come in, use an AI product, and see where are the pain points that the AI can't help me. Maybe it's not a revenue lawyer I need, maybe it's a product lawyer. And so they might be able to use these tools and not hire right off the bat. One last comment, I think, which has been really positive and what I've seen, is there are a lot of lawyers that go to USF, they go to Santa Clara, they go to whatever law schools. They don't get a chance at big law. And they have been able to get into this hot legal tech market, as you guys all know. And also, you've seen seasoned leaders here are very impressive, have moved into it. And it's created an avenue for hiring that's really nice for the legal world after what we've been through in the last 3 years in a very challenging market. So those are many thoughts.
Yeah, no, those are all really good. I would say some also additional practical takeaways. So if you are hiring out there right there, during our prep call, Andrew was talking about how, you could potentially use a Gen AI model to, draft a job description. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say fundamental skill sets that you can use, but if you haven't, please tap into them, use them. But the second level, or like leveling it up, would be, hey, a star type model, right? Like, I want to understand these core values or core components of our company, right? Or understanding that maybe this is a skills-based negotiator skill, right? So I'm not just looking for requisite commercial counsel, duties. I'm looking for someone that X, Y, or Z, right? So have this interactive, conversation with a model if you can, or you're allowed to. It'll really help you allow to also prep for these interviews, And then the second thing is, last night I was having dinner with someone, and we were kind of talking about, hey, how can you understand prompt engineering more? Because it seems to be a skill set that individuals are more interested in learning from, right? Either you're trying to understand how you frame the question, right? Or where you're getting to. And, after an hour and a half of us chatting last night, we kind of came to the conclusion that, insert whatever the name of it is called, right? If you don't understand what the starting point and the ending point is, all you're doing is just asking it to say, hey, this random job description, give me, a resume. Well, they don't know what your background is. They don't know where you've been. You should also probably tell it like, hey, I have these skill sets, and maybe this is an example of a resume that I think would be like stellar, but could you craft it to be more of mine, right? So really understand. So this prompt engineering continues to be a huge trend. And another huge trend, Anna, that you've been innovating at John Deere, right? You've talked about hiring talent, the core components, right? When you are hiring people, you're not necessarily looking just for commercial counsel, right? That can embed into your CLM or maybe negotiate 50% faster, whatever these buzzwords, right? Like, what are y'all doing to use AI and technology in your hiring practices?
Yeah. So, the first way that I'll approach this question is with my own team. So I had the opportunity to open a rec recently, and we're thinking about where we wanted to invest our dollars on that. We came up with a process automation specialist, and that's where we wanted to really focus, not only kind of the operations work, but as a department, how are we going to start investing to move our team forward? So her entire purview is where in the department are there opportunities for automation? This may be Gen AI related. It may be things like Power Automate and things like that are getting us all prepared. But I think having somebody in seat to help us identify on a task level basis where these opportunities exist has been really key for our team. Kind of more broadly within our attorneys, I would echo what Anne was saying. We are really slowing down in terms of how we're thinking about things. As a company, we're looking at this work breakdown structure that again goes down to the task level. How are people working? What are they focused on? And where do we anticipate there to be impact from AI? Spoiler, everywhere is where we anticipate it. And so it really is a sort of like, let's wait and see to a certain extent in terms of how we're going to be deploying additional dollars for headcount. I think this gives a lot of opportunity for legal service providers to come in and fill gaps for us. I think we're also really wanting to see partnership from outside counsel and how they're leveraging this technology. It's becoming just de rigueur in terms of conversation topics.
Yeah, and I think I saw him, Kevin Cohn, out in the audience, bright flag. If you guys are not within your own e-billing systems, right, or financial management systems, ERMs, whatever you're using in your organization, tapping into the AI portion of that, it's hand in hand with this resource allocation and budget management, right? Like, we're all in the same ecosystem. There's a place for law firms, right? There's a place for talent and however you define that, right? And then there's an in-between where you're like, okay, how do we weigh both sides? And, I know Andrew, that's kind of as general counsel, at, demand base and just the variety of roles you've had leading up to that. In our prep call, you were saying, yeah, you have to be scrappy. You have to understand, what battles you pick, right? And then you also have to kind of step outside of your legal hat, right? And if you're trying to advocate for a role, do you bring in a secondee? Does that secondee then provide the business value? Does that turn to the FTE? So yeah, kind of tell us your perspective, right? Because Anna's trying to, implement a plan and really help her in-house team from the legal operations standpoint do what legal ops people do best, right? Technology, process, optimization, right? Resource management. But you're having to drive that at almost the enterprise C-suite level, which is a different factor too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said a lot. There's a lot there. I think, one thing you talked about, like, I think overall, like, the thing that I'm looking for most when I'm looking for new talent is curiosity, like regardless of the role. And so the reality is I probably get pitched like 4 or 5 different, AI-based legal technologies a week. And so it's like rather than focusing on each one and saying, hey, like, we need to go deep on this or that, I think you got to go back to the fundamentals. You talked about prompt engineering, and I don't know if I'm here like supposed to be pitching different products, but like one of the first things that I did probably 18 months ago is one of the first or the second Chilia GCAI prompt engineering classes. I took it myself, and I was like, I don't feel like I am good enough at this, and I need to better understand how to do it before I go and put that on my team. And I think what that turned into was I sort of took some of those lessons and I fed that into my team. And then also I'm challenging them through OKRs and through kind of the goals and metrics that we track to come up with new ways that we're using AI as a team. So for example, we made a shift about a year ago where all of our NDAs are negotiated by AI. And so we have a CLM that we use that we train the AI tool on. And we decided that, hey, here's the 5 things that we care about in an NDA. If those things don't appear, we're going to auto kind of approve those, and it gets sent immediately for signature by our salespeople. It speeds up the process. And I had to make the call and just say, I realize we probably are missing something if we're doing that, but that's okay. I think the risk is probably going to be okay. And so I think like that's the way in which now come this quarter, I'm saying, what else can we feed into our AI, into that same AI model so that we are spending less time doing work that is kind of repeatable and more time focusing on the more interesting work. And I think like with respect to roles, I think you were saying kind of like what roles do you look for first, and someone being a technologist is really key. I'm a big fan of the legal ops role, and I have been for some time, because the reality is, like, I'm not an SME on our CLM system. We implemented an intake AI system. Like, I'm not the SME on that either. And so, like, having someone who's kind of like the main hub to run that is such a key first hire, in my opinion. And we built our team from when I came on. There was 2 folks, and now we're 10, including one person in India who only runs privacy. And so I think, like, being able to look both outside of the U.S. and at flex roles, people who do some GRC, some privacy, some commercial, some ops. Like, how can you be creative in the way in which you're hiring for your teams?
Yeah, I'm going to start to plant the seed right now for everyone out there of, we're going to open this up in a little bit to some questions, but something that a lot of us have both understood in our roles, scaling teams themselves, but also been on the other side in this ecosystem of asking, hey, what do you do at your company? What works for you guys? We're kind of similarly situated. Is this, how do you get innovative at the intersection of technology and resource allocation, right? And so it's a push and a pull, right? Sometimes it's budgeting battles, you don't know where you're going to get the help from. Your team is, overworked. Maybe you're not going to get FTE, but hey, you split that budget with a business partner. Now all of a sudden you guys could go in on a 3-month contractor. These are all like different ways that you can think about, as the title says, building that legal team, right? You got to build it up. It can't always just be 6 FTEs instantly because, you're having an unlimited credit card budget, right? Those days are a little bit over. And so kind of shifting now to the focus of, we got our legal ops perspective, we got our GC perspective. These are how they're working together. Mickey,
Yes.
skills, right? Circling back to this. What I found really interesting is, you and Nikki are really loud and proud, and I use that like in a very great context of talking about how innovative you guys are, the awards you guys do, right? The boundaries you're pushing, right? And so maybe for some individuals in this audience, their organizations aren't as forward tech, right? But you said something really interesting in our prep call about how even though your company is embracing that very quick and very in depth, you still needed to hone in on your own skill sets, right? And so talk to this audience about what you did kind of in your, you are an attorney, you're a chief of staff, you have to lead, your time is crunched, but you got to get on this gravy train too, right? Like, you have to be able to learn AI. So what were you doing to kind of building your own legal skill sets?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So while Nikki and I are very forward thinking, we had to actually, and the company as a whole is very jumped on the AI train right away. How can we utilize this? Our CFO was like, yeah, you should be able to cut your budget by X%. And I was like, where are you getting these numbers? And so I think there was that hype train that was like, oh yeah, we can increase productivity. Nikki and I took a step back, and while we were both very much on board that the technology transformation is happening, not only for Pure, but for our legal team as well, we had to really focus in and get our attorneys focused on the consumption aspect, pushing the consumption of the technology to increase the personal skill level, and encouraging the team to be very curious about how this could apply to their jobs. So that is where we are, pushing the consumption space with our team. And my challenge right now is turning that consumption into a solid return on investment. What does that return on investment strategy look like for us? So we are taking a pause on our organizational design model, and actually going back to the drawing board with that. So I feel very fortunate to be in this kind of chaotic space at the moment, because I think that I can lean in and really aggressively persuade my C-suite into what that ROI is actually going to be for our legal team. But it starts with an organization that is curious, open to changing the way they work. And so driving our skills model towards people who are embracing that is going to be very important to us.
It's listening to the business, right?
Yes.
And I think that's an important skill set that we often talk about, that individuals who are looking to hire, they're saying, yeah, I just don't need someone maybe that's AmLaw experience with X, Y, and Z from Y law firm, right? They're like, okay, cool. They're going to do a little bit of privacy, do a little bit of marketing, do a little bit of this. And at the same time, I need them to be a liaison, right, for a project implementation or a large enterprise project. So, and when you're thinking about the candidates, kind of going back to, yeah, you have the skill sets, you're leveling them up yourself.
Yep.
What are some of the top core competencies outside of the general business skill sets that you're seeing for the candidate specifically? Are there trends that you're looking to hire specifically? Are there, like what are
Yeah,
you seeing
I
within
think
your own chief of staff?
I think what we're seeing is a trend towards, I use this very generically, a project management skill. So we have opted in the privacy space and in some of our ethics and compliance to go with a specialist role as opposed to a strict attorney role. So we have 2 non-attorneys in that space, one from KPMG, the other coming from a more of a project skills base to manage both the business and the legal aspect. So I'm not saying we're veering away from hiring lawyers. I'm saying we're looking for a more business legal combination.
Business combination. Okay. And then Anna, so that's kind of their perspective. You said at John Deere, you're trying to get into it,
Yep.
you're trying to get the buy-in.
Yeah.
Is it that forward thinking, or where do you fall on the spectrum?
No.
Okay.
Shocking.
Shocking.
Fairly traditional
I'd make a
conservative
mower
company.
joke, but I don't know any of them, so yeah.
Insert something about tractors.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, actually, our tech is pretty cutting edge, and our people are starting to follow suit in different spaces. Legal is still very much in this sort of traditional, like, oh, what's going to happen? I'm still in my specialty, like staying in my swim lane. What I'm hearing everybody say and what I've observed is this sort of collapsing of boundaries, both with technology, right? We're kind of going upstream with that. It's not legal tech, it's tech. And how are we supporting that as a business? And with skill sets, it's not, I am this specific expertise. I am this sort of multi-tool that can be deployed. And so how do we think about that, and how do we find those people, and how do we leverage those expertise at the right time in the right place in the business? So I think for us, we are very much in a comfort and adoption world. So we are doing the first department-wide co-pilot pilot in our team. So we've got about 400 licenses deployed within our legal and regulatory affairs groups. We have built 5 weeks of cohort training, so they're going to ride shotgun with
So
us.
it's a train the trainer type program?
Yeah, and so let's see what we can do with it.
Okay,
So the
okay.
outcome, I got this on our GC strategic priorities for the year, which is great. So the outcome needs to be that everybody, we have, usage graphs, and so it's an adoption goal, as well as come up with a use case that is now deployed within your area of expertise, your functional vertical, that is meaningful that you can bring back. We just said 1. I think they're going to go way faster than that. We also partnered with a consultant before coming into this to build us a prompt library so that we have meaningful prompts in the spaces that legal's working on, the topics that they have already kind of raised their hands on as meaningful that they'll be able to deploy. So it's really, how do we spoon feed and drip the access and the usage to you to start seeing what sticks and what's helpful.
Yeah, because it's hard to just throw any legal professional into this. Hey, we're all jumping on the AI train, right? There are going to be your wide variety and spectrum of individuals and their comfortability levels, right? And so you'll want your more tech savvy people, right, to maybe join on the committees. And we talk about it in legal ops all the time, right? The change champions, right? Who's going to help you, advocate and effectuate what you're trying to sell here, right?
Yeah, and we've got, so this is our sort of day-to-day, department-wide initiative. We also have a smaller group that we're calling kind of the brain trust that's building out our roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years, which, I mean, we'll try, but everything is changing so quickly, right? But at least to have some thought into where is this going? As a business, how are we thinking about the use of AI? How can our attorneys use it? There's still conversations happening on privilege and private data. What are we doing with logs that IT can see in the back from this? Even though we have a third party kind of agreement with Microsoft, we're comfortable with that. Internally, some of our systems and processes are not set up to support the way that legal wants to use this. So it's a really interesting sort of examine from all angles conversation.
And it's hard to get the buy-in. When I was at Credit Karma, it was a little bit before the today's AI, if you will, but I was constantly trying to evaluate, how's the data that I have in all these repositories, all these systems, what can I analyze to a trend for whatever X, Y, or Z event that is going to happen in front of me, right? And specifically when it comes to the right sizing and the talent, I was always trying to think, okay, well, if I don't need to send it out for a flat fee to a law firm for this, right? Could I get some secundies for a couple months? And can I actually embed them into our business and help with these individual projects that are really going to move things forward for our business? And it wasn't the, can I borrow money from someone, right? It wasn't the doing all those things. And to your point, you have to drip it in a little bit. And then once you understand, hey, Flex Talent can get you this, or technology can get you that. Maybe I don't need a lawyer anymore, Andrew, to your point, right? Like maybe I'm not looking for a commercial counsel. Maybe I'm looking for a legal professional that has X, Y, and Z skill set. And so kind of as we're looking to round this up a little bit, both I want to hear from Anne from the talent side and then Andrew kind of from the GC side. What are you both looking for in the next generation or the next 12 months of hiring Andrew? And Anne, where do you think the talent pool is going in the next 12 months? I'll let y'all find which one wants to go first. So.
You want to take that first?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
I think that it's interesting. I mean, I think the talent pool, there's a lot of candidates on the market. As I said, I mean, I think we're going to be looking at I think in terms of paralegals, contract managers, I think that may shift to like legal engineers, prompt engineers, potentially. I don't know. I think there's going to be a shift there. I think in terms of junior lawyers going in-house, I think what's going to happen in the future, the next year, is lawyers are going to stay at law firms longer. I've been in this business a long time. No one hired a lawyer that was 3 years, 4 years out of school in-house years ago. They were, it was when you didn't make partner or you decided you didn't want to be a partner, you'd transition. And I think we're going to go back to that where the talent in-house is going to be more seasoned and there's going to be more on the legal ops build side, whatever you guys are doing. And these people are going to, again, just have to be very good communicators that are lawyers in-house and very business-minded and be able to show their worth. So those are a few thoughts I have.
Okay.
I don't know.
Andrew, what are you seeing on the hiring side from your side?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a fallacy that like lawyers are not willing to change, and I think we all need to stop saying that. Frankly, like I think that may have been true historically, but
louder, applause for that one. Yes, right.
And I think that it's very rare to find GCs or hiring managers now who are saying like folks need to be at this specific law school or have this specific law firm, big law experience. I came from big law. I never wanted to recruit from big law. I don't think it's important for the roles that I hire across my teams over the last 8 to 10 years. I think that you will see more like in the interview process. I do hire more contract managers now than commercial lawyers. Like for that role, I am looking for my next hire that I'm about to open up is a legal ops hire. Like those are the roles that I am most interested in. I think will make the most impact for our teams of like 10 or so with the company, 750, 800 person companies, which is where I've worked. I think that in the interview process, you're going to want to suss out, and this is what I was talking about in the prep call on the STAR method. Like I use ChatGPT Enterprise, which is what we have, to help me write interview questions to prepare for interviews that I have using the STAR method. And I think you can really see like someone will say, I implemented this. Okay, what exactly did you do? What was the result of that? And then I always ask, in giving the hindsight, like what would you do differently now that you're 6 months out, 12 months out? And that's the answer that those answers I think are the most interesting to me. And I was interviewing someone last week and I asked him a question like that, and it honestly wasn't a great response. And what was really interesting is this candidate came back in his thank you message to me and he said, hey, like I think I missed the mark on this answer. And this is what I actually wanted to say and should have said. And I'm like, that changed my mind about this person. Like I'm super pro on this person now because like that self-awareness and self-realization is really key. I know there's another GC in here who like asks that question every interview. He says like at the end of his interview, is there anything that you would want to take back on this interview? And that's like a crazy question I think to ask, but it's an interesting question to see the self-awareness in the response.
Yeah, it goes back to the prompt engineering. Are you utilizing AI from a talent perspective past just the put me together a resume or a job description, right? I would encourage anyone who is looking for their next role to play around with your Gen AI model, right? Ask it to pretend like it's the interviewer from HR, then pretend like it's the associate general counsel that you will be 2 lines away from reporting to. And then finally, you're going to be having the interview with the CLO, right? And what Andrew said, I'm now going to borrow it a little bit, steal it going forward, is then ask it to throw you off base, right? Tell it to like really shake things up to your core, right? Get it a little frazzled. Maybe then there will be some perspective as well as to things that you're not looking for. And that's to, kind of the point of Gen AI should be used for, right? The starting and the ending point, not just necessarily the give me the data and the default. We're going to have tons of panels today, right, that are talking about their systems and all of that. But yeah, at the end of the day, talent is a human-centric approach. And so it's really interesting when you have to balance the robot that we're trying to all be with the human element of what we are currently living in. So with that being said, I wanted to open up the floor to any conversations, any questions that anyone has. Now is your time to pick the brains of these 4 fabulous panelists we have up here. I will walk around. So. Oh, perfect. Excellent. Please stand up. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm George Ciccovanni. I'm a law firm lawyer. This is fascinating to me. Not at Big Law, so all the big law jokes are on board with. Andrew, I was curious about what you said about using automating the NDA function. I was curious about just how automated are we talking about? Is it that there's no human check and then it gets approved, or is it that it gives you a recommendation? What's the level of human review on that NDA automation?
Yeah. I'm gonna answer that with a story a little bit. When I was at my law firm, I was seconded to a big investment bank, and for 6 months, and what I did was negotiate NDAs for the bank, like day in and day out. I probably did like 15 a day every single day. And I came to the realization.
Doing the good Lord's work over there.
I came to the realization that this is not something that needs to be happening all the time. There's just only so many ways that an NDA can be written. There's only so many issues that can appear in an NDA. And so what I took to our team was here are the 5 things that I care about, right? I said, if there's a non-solicit in there, that can't be in there. If there's someone's trying to sneak an indemnity in there, that can't be in there. If there's some random choice of law that has no we have no presence and we have no idea what it is, that can't be in there. So those are the types of things where we set the parameters, and then our legal ops person at the time basically in a very meta way took some NDA examples, but also used Gen AI to write me 10 ways that this provision can be written, and then we loaded it all into the system, and then we had the system basically spot check to see if any of this came out when new NDAs, usually not our paper but third-party paper, came through. For the first I think quarter or maybe quarter and a half, we had that same person spot check to make sure that the technology was picking up the right things. I think out of I don't know exactly the number, but 1 NDA was missed where a provision was written in a way where it didn't flag that this non-solicit was in there. And I don't even think that non-solicit was the issue. But so basically I took that information and I was I'm willing to accept that risk. And because I don't want our lawyers to spend time on it. And so if we are missing 1 indemnity or 1 non-solicit, I'm willing to accept the risk. Why? Because typically we're writing an NDA to get to an MSA, which has confidentiality provisions and indemnity provisions in it already. What is the actual practical risk here in taking that?
Yeah. And
so to answer your question, now, no, we don't have a human check.
And it's always going to be the balance between human and technology, right? Where, we always use autocorrect. It's kind of one of the first, whether it's spell check, autocorrect, right? It's a primitive form of AI, right? But how many times have we said duck when we really meant whatever, right? So you do have to, you understand, right? Maybe you are going to have that little bit of risk, but you want to automate it and you want to lean into the technology. So there has to be the balance of both worlds at the end of the day.
Just a nice little tidbit I heard in a panel I was part of yesterday also is we're really talking about augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And that is, I think, a really like nice way to put in this like human in the loop where that makes sense focus. We are not trying to take the humanity out of it, but we are trying to augment what our humans are capable of doing.
Yeah, and human in the element is so important because one of the things that we do at Legal IO is we kind of have this bring your own talent offering, right? Where you tap into the power of your own network and you can onboard them through us. And whether you are, know somebody in the industry, maybe a secondee you worked with, there's been lots of layoffs, right? There's an opportunity for you to use that human element. As you said, it's augmented and not autonomous, right? And so you're not just going to want to pick some candidate because their skill sets have this on a resume, but because you've built that trust. And there's always going to be that factor when you're hiring someone of, do you trust them? Do you understand them? Are they going to be a good representative for the entire enterprise on behalf of legal, right? If they're in that negotiating skill set for commercial counsel. We have another question from our audience out there. Would you please stand up?
Hello. Hi, I'm Kristen Falls. I'm a Clock Regional co-chair in Southern California. Shameless plug, open to work. So thank you all. Oh, hello. Okay, hi. So I'm a legal ops pro with an associate's and a paralegal certification. And so some of what I'm noticing in AI is that the AI seems to be kind of gatekeeping some of the talent. Because if the employers are putting in like keywords like must have bachelors and things like that, there's a hurdle to overcome. And I'm wondering what you're seeing on your end. Like if you want a particular person, I love all these things that you're mentioning, like curious, skilled, experienced, willing to work with new technology out there, obviously. But there does seem to be this issue where AI might be, gatekeeping talent such as myself from actually getting to you, because I will never make it past your HR. But if I have a conversation with you today and we discuss, and then we get on a call next week, there you go. I'm just letting you guys know that that's an issue that's out there. Tom knows because I call him once a month and I say, Tom, I need a coffee. This is disaster. So I'm wondering what you guys are seeing with that. And if you have tips for the talent that's out there who really are matching all the skills that you're looking for, but how are we supposed to, make that leap to get to that point? Because working with companies that want that curiosity is amazing, because that's exactly like you do have a lot of seasoned professionals out there who are looking for exactly yourselves.
So I can take this. I mean, we're in search, and part of our job, or our main job, is to vet for intellectual curiosity and for judgment and for people skills, right? And I don't know if maybe AI will be able to do that in the future. Right now, we can do things with AI, but we still are testing for those things that our clients want. In the legal ops world, I think it's very challenging because it's not like when we do legal ops searches, it's different than doing, I want a commercial counsel that went to Duke, then they went to Wilson, then they went to Google, and now they're going to make a move. These legal ops people have all kinds of backgrounds. They came out of different things. So I don't know as far as like AI goes, and maybe you heads of legal ops can tell, but I think there's still a lot of vetting in terms of talent where you have to have people involved to vet it. And I don't know that AI can do it right now.
I'm going to echo that. I don't think we're there yet. What I do when I find when I'm hiring for legal ops positions is I'm having to work very closely with my HR TA person, talent acquisition rep, and we're curating this relationship, and I'm feeding them what I need. I think the hope for the future is that I won't have to spend time doing that with my HR person. My HR person will then be freed up to do something else, and I can use an autonomous agent type model where I am teaching it what to look for. And then I can be very specific about the curiosity, whether or not I need a bachelor's. I'm super hopeful that we're going to get to a point where we can actually use AI to search for those unicorns.
Yeah, I mean, there's the oil in the vinegar. Wait, the oil in the water? What's that analogy? Yes, the oil in the vinegar. Yes, something
That's
like
for
that.
bread.
Separating maybe if an organization, right, needs A, Y, Z, B, all these different requisites, you're not going to find it all, right? You may not be the perfect candidate for that person, but at the end of the day, I really loved what Andrew said earlier, right? Yeah, backdoor your way into it, right? Find that person, network, right? Building your own legal team is also building your brand, and I think a lot of that is understanding the culture, the fit, who you're wanting to hire. You know, you can't. I don't imagine a world where chief of staffs are ever replaced by your insert contingent workforce platform program or whatever that only does the autonomous hiring and all that, right?
Well, no, I think that the lucky thing I have going for me about the chief of staff is that no one really knows what that.
It's so elusive. It's great, right?
Different for everybody. So as long as I can be mysterious and I fly under the radar for that, but I do think that in a role like mine, I'm very beneficial. I have the benefit of working very closely with my leader and syncing and making sure we're on the same page with how we're using that technology. And so that's where I feel I can lean in and really help scope and shape what that means for us in the future.
Right.
And I think these conversations are actually really helpful to this. I've never had a rec open where I haven't had to work incredibly closely with my HR rep with that or business partner. They don't know what legal ops is. Generally, like, you want a lawyer. It's like, I do not want a lawyer.
No,
like, what is
absolutely.
happening? Yeah. So there is a certain first swath. I totally understand what you mean in terms of things being gatekeeped. And I think that having this awareness, these conversations, and as boundaries continue to collapse, and we want these kind of different kind of skilled individuals, and we all start raising the visibility and conversation around that, we will bring different requirements to our HR business partners, to whatever technology enables our search, and that will help to open those boundaries. Not a today solve, but I totally hear you. And I think talking to people is probably the best way, because the HR doesn't know what they're looking for.
And a lot of our clients are coming to us at the intersection of AI and talent for the question of, hey, we have this role, we have this budget, what can we get, right? And so we're running comp numbers, right? We're looking at law firm rates, right? We're being able to provide them different tiers of talent. And so those, I think, are the pathways that we see this intersection of building that legal team is, using data, using analysis, being able to backdoor yourself into what's the business strategy, what's the outcome. Third time I'm gonna say it, right? Gotta know where you're starting, gotta know where you're ending, right? And so with that, I would like to thank everybody today for your time. I think that we are ending our session a little bit earlier so that people can get a little bit of break. Thank you so much.